Aloha, namaste. This is Radha, and I'm here to talk about some big changes we have this week. We have our sun moving into Taurus. We also have Venus moving into Taurus later this week. And we have at the end of the week a really intense opposition with Mars joined exactly to Rahu, the north node, and the moon joined Ketu exactly across from each other. So I'm going to be diving into this today. To begin with, we'll talk about the sun because he's moving on this day, or he's already moved as I'm making this video. He is, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so we can see, he's moving in on the star called Kritika, which is often known as the Pleiades. And this is where Jupiter already is. We also have a Jupiter-Sun conjunction this week. So his movement through this star particularly shows how we're moving from this Aries energy of fire. Kritika is ruled by Agni, the fire deity. And it's really where we can see through the element of fire. This is like our deeper sight, our penetrative sight that is brought to us by this element. And it helps connect us to source, to our higher consciousness, which is really what the sun is representing, by using this fiery quality of being able to burn away everything that's not truth and leave us with the clear, the crystal clear kernel of truth. And as the sun moves from the more fiery element of Aries, where we're more driven and directed, into the more diffuse state of Taurus, where we're more like stopping and smelling the roses and really experiencing the moment and really experiencing ourselves in each embodied moment, we are able to take that penetrative sight, and instead of having it take us somewhere and drive us somewhere directly, it works to kind of just elaborate on the life we're already living. So in Taurus, we have to take care of the things that we need, like food and, our shelter needs and going to sleep and cleaning ourselves and wearing clothes and all of those things that we do. But we don't do them in this sort of rushed manner to get to some other end goal. They become the end goal in and of themselves, and making them beautiful and nourishing and pleasurable becomes a very important part of our world. And I talked about this a little bit when Jupiter moved into Taurus as well. And, Venus is going to be moving in later this week, really adding to this quality because it's her own sign, right? The sign of Taurus is ruled by Venus, and it's the internal, feminine, earthy side of Taurus, where rather than just, of Venus, excuse me, rather than just wanting to connect with others in this Libran manner, in Taurus, we're almost more selfish about it, right? We know we need other people to experience the height of pleasure and joy in this world, but we're very concerned with ourself and our own experience and our own embodied experience. What does our physical body feel like when we eat different food? How much do we enjoy it? Is the meal set in such a way where it's beautiful and all the tastes are represented? Are we taking a bath with bath salts and flowers in it, or are we just hosing ourselves off to get clean? Is our home a beautiful space that contains us and holds us in a way that helps elevate us to what we want to be living in our life? Or is our home just kind of, four walls that we live within that functions for us? And so this is where we really get to beautify all the areas of our life. And the sun connects us to source, right? It connects us to consciousness, as I was saying before. And so sometimes our direct line to source can be a little confused in the earth signs because they're so material. They're so much about our worldly experience. So we start to find God in the everyday, in the flowers, in the bees, in feeding our children or our pets or ourselves, in taking care of the specific little details that make something more what we desire, more what brings us pleasure and joy and happiness. So I'm going to fast forward time here a little bit so we can see, because this is the 14th where the sun has just entered in, and we might be feeling a little instability today because as the sun changes signs, we start, it's very destabilizing for us. It's our solar power, it's our source of all things. And when he's in fluctuation, which of course he's not actually in fluctuation, we're in fluctuation, but when we're moving from one place to the next, it feels unsettling. It can be difficult for things like travel and the like. But let's move us to the 18th, where we have Jupiter and the sun conjunct. And, I could move it back to the exact time. We have them together, well, roughly around this time, in the morning in Hawaii, 9 a.m. Hawaii time. That would be 12 p.m. in Pacific Daylight Time. These two are coming together exactly. Jupiter's our hope, it's our inspiration, it's our beliefs, it's our teachings, it's the way in which we expand. And I've already elaborated quite a bit on Jupiter and Taurus if you want to watch that video to kind of get more juice on that. But when the Jupiter and Sun come together, they're really bringing our consciousness in connection with our beliefs, our capacity to perceive the world the way we do, our perspective on life, what inspires us, what drives us, what makes us do the things we do comes a lot from our beliefs. And our direct link to source informs those beliefs. And Jupiter is also informing our connection to source in many ways, because he gives us the lens through which we see God, through which we see spirit in the ways that we see him, or it, or her, or however you best relate. So this day is going to be a really powerful day for our inspiration, for our sense of this is what things can be like. This is the magic of the world, and this is how we can grab a hold of that and lead our lives from that place. Very powerful place. And then, of course, just later in this day, and I think it's even nighttime here. Well, not quite nighttime. It's like 5 o'clock Hawaii time, but definitely nighttime once you start getting to later time zones, which is almost all of them. But California, Pacific Daylight Time, it moves into like 8 p.m. Venus transfers into this sign. Now, this is Venus's sign, so this is her place, right? This is where she shines, where we're really able to find our happiness in all of these details and all of the things I've just discussed about Taurus. We feel connected with other people because we're connecting with ourselves, because we're taking care of ourselves, that self-care term that we hear so much. We're able to relate to other people from a grounded place, from a place where we feel comfort and ease. Now, Kritika itself, that star, is not as friendly to Venus because it's ruled by the sun, and it has this very penetrative quality, as I spoke about. And in my Jupiter in Taurus video, I speak about the star itself, Kritika, and how it has to do with the sages casting off their wives to the sky, these stars in the sky of the Pleiades that are often called the seven sisters. Well, it's these wives of the sages. And in the story, in the Vedic story, it's actually only 6 of the wives that get cast off to the sky to be separated from their husbands, because one of the wives, Arundhati, has such strong connection to her husband, to Vasitya, that she is able, there's nothing that can break that. And the nymph Swaha that came in and impersonated the other wives isn't able to impersonate Arundhati. And so this steadfastness of our own connection and our own ability to see becomes really important here. And we might end up casting off people in our lives or separating ourselves from people in our lives in order to be more true with ourselves, to be more in connection. And those really strong, true connections we have, where we're kind of on this path together, are more likely to flourish as we pass through this particular spot. But of course, Venus and the sun move really quickly. And so they'll be moving out of Kritika in just a short amount of time. And from there, we'll move into Rohini, which is the more sensuous and seductive part of Taurus. But then the next thing I wanted to mention, and this is really different than our Venus, Sun, Jupiter conjunction. Actually, I'll say one more thing about Venus and Jupiter. I don't like to make the videos too long, but there's so much to say, I can't help it sometimes. Venus and Jupiter are the two gurus, right? They're the two teachers. And Venus is the guru of the Asuras, and Jupiter is the guru of the Devas. And the Asuras are the beings without light, right? The Devas are the gods moving towards source. If you know anything about yogic theory, it's like the sattvic energy, or that more rajasic or tamasic even energy. And we are in a place where Venus is in her own sign, right? She operates well here. So our capacity to take care of our body here on Earth is expanded. In many ways, we can look at Venus as being almost like the tantric guru, and Jupiter being like the yogic guru. And their ways of doing things are at odds often, right? Venus is pulling us more into our worldly existence, more into our relationships, more into sex, more into food, more into pleasure, more into things of this body and being attached to the material realm and our relations. Jupiter is bringing us up and above that, so we can see it with this bird's eye view and say, well, there's a philosophy that helps explain that can pull us out of our, when we get mired in our different emotions, or our, even our greed or our lust or our covetousness of other people. And so their methodologies can be very different, and this can bring us some struggle. And the two of them are in what we call a yuddha. They're in a war, right, as they move together in the sky. And so we're going to see that, and there's different theories on this. Often the higher degrees will be considered the winner of the war, but Venus is really the one who is going to, first of all, move faster, so move into higher degrees faster, and second of all, it's her own sign. And so she's kind of the winner of this war, if you will. And so our pleasures take over, our bodily, our taking care of the body takes over. Jupiter's in a weakened place here in Taurus, where he's not as connected to his true teachings. He's more connected to what he wants to gain and expand. And so, and the sun, like I said, is not as penetrative here. We don't have as much connection to source because we're in this material embodied sense. So we're really going to find that Venus's presence here can point the way to good ways in which we can care for ourselves, good ways in which we can nurture not just ourselves, but also our relationships with other people and our health. Jupiter can have a lot to do with our health here, and Venus can really show us how the pleasure is not just in overconsumption or taking in too much of something, but also in maintaining, having balance, having a little bit of, dessert, not a whole lot of dessert, having a little bit of these different tastes, and not needing to overwhelm ourselves, because we actually lose the pleasure when we overwhelm ourselves. When we move into this more addictive quality that Jupiter and Taurus can sometimes bring out, we lose the joy. It's no longer fun when we're just doing it, just to keep doing it, just to keep putting things in our mouth, or just to keep experiencing pleasure in some way. So Venus has more of a balanced approach here, where we understand a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We need to take our bath. Maybe you indulge in something, that you don't normally indulge in, but you just have a little bit, and you want to make sure your health is cared for overall, with particularly your food intake. Now, this Rahu Mars and Ketu Moon conjunction is really fascinating. On the 19th, we see that we have them exact, Rahu and Mars, and Ketu and the moon were more exact a little bit earlier in the day, a little bit earlier in the morning. So let's see if I can get it to that time. So here we go. We have Mars and Rahu just coming into one another, and we have the moon and Ketu almost exact, not exactly exact. There we go. Exactly exact Ketu moon and almost exact Rahu Mars. And this is really intense. This is going to, be a little bit of a killjoy on some of what we've been experiencing, because Ketu on the moon can really cut us off from our emotions. Rather than cutting us off of the things of this world that are not pure, as in Kritika, this is cutting us off from the purity of our feelings, the purity of our inner connection to ourself, our psyche, our emotions, and our capacity to understand what we feel in this world. And that's so much of how we move through it. So one thing we can do in this time, and it's in Virgo where we're already quite critical. And this can be a place where we just tear ourselves apart, really eviscerating ourselves to find that place. There's a goal here, and it's not an obvious goal because K2 is without head. K2 is not trying to make any new karma in this world. He's all about the old karma and what's already happened, what's already passed. And this is what makes us disgruntled when K2 is involved. But it's if we can penetrate to the place within ourselves that we feel that pain or we feel that separation from ourselves, we can perhaps unlock it. Now, on the other side of this, we have Rahu and Mars. Mars is where we're usually very angry, right? Or we feel this desire to individuate and strengthen ourselves and find our courage and our discipline. And we get angry when he's not in a place where we're really able to do that. While in Pisces, we're taking the spiritual journey. This is like an inner strengthening of ourselves. We're really looking at all the places that we haven't maybe always looked. We're diving deep into the penetrative places of our shadows. And we're also really seeing how we can expand that to create more oneness for ourselves. So we're individuating in order to become more part of the whole and the one. Rahu can make that really scattered, right? It can really like emphasize particularly whatever Mars rules for you. So if you're Aries or Scorpio, that's your ruling planet. It's really going to like exaggerate yourself in the situation. And the situation will be whatever house Pisces is for you. If you're say a Gemini rising, this is your 6th and 11th Lord in your 10th house. So it's like the struggles that you have in your work, the hard part of the work that you're bringing out into this world, but maybe also the healing that you're bringing to humanity through your work. It's really exaggerated though, and it's not totally clear. Both of the nodes delude us. They give us this confusion and this delusion, and they make things seem either bigger than they are with Rahu or just so much about this one thing in K2, like this, we're just getting into this like microscopic, like this is the thing. And so it becomes a state that pulls us out of our actual lived reality with these energies coming from the future with Rahu and the past with K2 that are driving us and sort of not forcing us, but kind of forcing us through this strong disgust and like active pulling away from and other side, like, this is what I need to do. So I'm not connected to my feelings, but I know these are the actions I need to take. I know this is the spiritual path I have to take. And it can become overwhelming for us. And so, wherever this Rahu Ketu axis is in your chart, you've been reckoning with this for some time, but bringing in the luminary of the moon and Mars is really going to bring this to sort of a pitch point. And we're going to really want to take action even more where this is. And this is already happening. Mars is already moving in conjunction with Rahu, but really wanting to take action in this spiritual warrior state that we are in this area of our life, and really pulling away from our connection to ourself, which we can't do if we're really going to be taking spiritual action in any direction. We need to include the moon. We need to include our emotions. We need to include our psyche, our mind, and the way in which we are, vulnerable in this world. And so if we're cut off from that and we're avoiding that and trying to get somewhere, we've sort of missed the point, right? We've missed the spiritual journey altogether. So this is a really good day to kind of sit with yourself and meditate, allow yourself to go even deeper into your mind. Like I said, maybe you can penetrate to the depths of where you feel that disgust or where you feel that thing that's not right, and help clear it by loving it even more, not by being even more fierce and rigorous with it. The fact that Mars is in Pisces and they're in the star of Revati, where we really have this quality of bringing ourselves to the end of a long journey, coming home to ourselves. We might feel like, we're just in just a little bit of touch. If it wasn't for this pesky emotion over here, like I'm almost there. I'm almost home. I'm almost realized, or I'm almost, at my finish line. And this annoying, feeling over here is blocking me from that. Or this desire to feel connection and to feel unconditional love is blocking me from my end goal. But if we can relax that a little bit and recognize that the end goal is nothing if we don't bring ourselves along, then we will really, we will really get the most out of this particular alignment. So it can be a good day to be around other people. You know, it's a Sunday, so there's a good chance you won't be alone. You know, if you have family, you'll probably have some family around. But if you can find time, particularly in the morning, to really meditate and really allow yourself, you know, that was 6:36 a.m. that I had the exact time for here in Hawaii. Of course, that's later in California and other places. But just taking a moment to really be with yourself, particularly if you feel agitated and angry, because both Mars and K2 are very fiery. And when they activate each other, we can get militant and really cutting. And so we might just like cut somebody off, really cutting ourselves off, right? But putting it on someone else. So if we can, you know, find a little spaciousness in that to be with ourselves and really, you know, again, allow all these energies of Taurus, this sort of diffuse awareness of how every part of our life is bringing us closer to our end game, closer to our truth. The end game is here. We're in it already. There is no finish line we're trying to cross, right? It's here, and it's just incorporating more into our life, having more spirit in our life. Yes, being spiritual warriors and stepping up and doing your solitary practices every day so that you can connect more in a more authentic way, but also just infusing that juice into the daily so that you're, you know, not always trying to strive to get somewhere, because that's the struggle with Mars, right? We're always trying to get somewhere else. And we believe there's a fight or something we have to be up against. And what we're learning right now is that, you know, the only thing we're up against is ourselves and our own mind. And the more we can recognize that, the more we can release a lot of the things that cause us problems or give us struggle in our life and create more grace and ease. So I hope this is helpful. If it is, please drop a comment, or you can subscribe or like my page to help pass this energy around to others. I do a breakdown for all 12 signs weekly. And in this week's forecast, I talk about how these particular energies of the sun and Venus changing signs and this Rahu, Mars, Moon, K2 conjunction and opposition really affects each of us individually, because it really is a very different area of our life. So you can look at my Patreon group at Radahome, or patreon.com, radahomeastrology.com to check that out. And if you're interested in working with me, I have several different ways to work with me, including a new offering that I have just brought out called the Freedom Sessions, where I work with people in a much more Taurian way, where we really allow the moment to reveal itself. And we take the amount of time we need for that. And we work the compensation through what feels right for the person who's in the recipient role of this offering. You can find out more about these freedom sessions if you go to my website, radahomeastrology.com. There's also a link to my Patreon from there. So you can just go there and find your way to all the different things. I offer regular readings, specific readings on any subject you're very interested in as well. And I hope to see you again soon. Namaste.